Thank you for tuning in to the Patricia Show. My name is Patricia. Please press like, subscribe, and share to share this video with someone you know that may need it. I was listening today to Michael Newton. He has passed on now, but he was a psychologist. Psychologist, and he used to put people under hypnosis, and they would tell you what it was like on the when you die in the spirit world. They would go to their past lives, explain how they died, and explained when they went to the spirit world and what all that was about. It was very interesting information. So one of them he did was on dying, when your loved one dies. And I thought this was very interesting because I've had three family members, a lot of family members that's passed on, but three specifically that tried to contact me after they had died. So I thought this was very interesting. Some of the souls that had passed on were stating that they were trying to contact their loved ones, and they get very frustrated because the loved ones don't even know that they're in the room. And so because some people think when you die, you're dead and gone, and that's it. Your spirit is not dead and gone because the spirit just lives on. It's energy, it's light. So it continues to evolve and it continues to grow. So one thing that they were saying is that when they pass on, when you have a loved one pass on, that loved one might come and try to comfort you, you're grieving. And you don't even know that it's in the room because you're grieving so hard or so much, you can't calm yourself down to feel them. And then one spirit came forth to say that it really didn't matter if they were grieving or not. He was able to get through to a loved one when he passed on. So one thing, I thought this was very, very interesting. So one thing I want to say, when you have a loved one that passes on and you're thinking about them or reminiscing memories or just thinking about them, maybe after the funeral or whatever, sit by yourself in the silence of your room. Try not to cry. Put all your emotions aside. Call their name 3 times from within you. I always like to focus your attention on your heart center and going, inside of you. And call your loved one name 3 times. And then just sit there and feel if you can connect or if you feel their presence in the room. Some of the souls that had passed on were saying that you may feel their presence. You might feel something in the room. You might not know what it is, but you just feel something in the room, or you feel like you're not alone, or you just feel like something is there. So sit there until you feel that, like your loved one is in the room, something's in the room, or you're not alone. Just feel that. And when you feel that something is there, know that that's your loved one. And then you can begin to communicate with it silently. Silently meaning just talk to them with your thoughts, not with your words. They were also saying once they knew that their loved ones were going to be okay, they can usually go ahead and move on to the next phase of their growth. But some of them were saying that they constantly, it was hard for them to move on when they're leaving a loved one's grieving so deeply. So just try that exercise the next time you have a loved one passed on. Now, in the beginning, I told you there were three of my loved ones that had passed on and tried to keep contact with me. One of them was my first husband. No, I'm sorry, my second husband. He wanted me to go to San Francisco and put his ashes, throw them in the water there. And I done that. When I got there by the water to put his throw his ashes there was a special place that me and him used to go. I really felt his presence there. I felt that he was like floating right above me, like above my head, but a little bit to the right and a little in front of me. As I throwed the ashes in the water, I really did think or felt that I heard something that says always, meaning that he would always love me. I was so shocked that I heard that I kept thinking after, I was going to my car, I was thinking to myself, did I really hear that? I'm not, because then your own mind start doubting. Did I hear that? I don't know if I heard that right. But as I think back on it, I really did hear something say always to me. So that was my second husband. Now, when my mother passed, she repeatedly, for weeks, tried to continue to contact me. She would come to me even in visions and give me information about my sisters that were going through really bad, having a bad time with her dying, and telling me about them. Now, let me give you an example. One of my sisters, I didn't even know that she was still grieving. Didn't even know it. This is a couple months after my mom had died. My mother came to me in like a dream vision. Is the only way I can, explain it. But she was telling me that one of my sisters were losing her hair from the grieving, and the other sister was sitting in her room in the darkness, and she needed to seek professional care. My mother said she needed professional help. Then my other sister, my mother said, was talking to some spirits who were giving her numbers to play in the lottery, but they weren't they weren't going to come out. They were like playing a joke with my sister, just spirits who was joking around. Now, I knew none of this, to be going on for real. This is what my mother is telling me in the vision. So I called my sister. Sure enough, everything my mother had told me, my sisters were going through. The one who was sitting in the dark, she had been coming home from work and just sitting in the dark. She was so depressed. And then the other one, her hair was coming out in chunks. And then the one sister said for the last 30 days, for the last month, she said she had been having this dream, and these spirits were really telling her to play, I think it was triple threes. And she had been playing them, and it wasn't coming out. And when she would ask them if it was coming out, they would just keep telling her, yes, they're coming out. Just keep playing them, keep playing them. So I explained to her, my mother said that they were joking, just playing around with her, and for her to stop playing them. My sister went on to tell me how she had lost so much money playing these triple threes, that she was under the impression that they were, these spirits were telling her it's going to come out. My sister is very sensitive to energy, so she's able to, feel and see spirits, but she doesn't try them. In other words, whoever talked to her, she just have a conversation. She don't try to say, if you're not of God, leave, or she doesn't say things like that. So I had to remind her that she had to do that. She had lost so much money, she wouldn't even tell me how much money she had lost. She quit at that moment playing the number threes, triple threes, and do you know they never did come out? So my mother was correct. So then all of my sister went and sought help, the one that was sitting in the dark, and anyway, we all came around and became strong. But my point is, my mother really got in touch with me to tell me that. Another thing she got in touch with me to tell me was that my aunt, which was her youngest sister, was going to get in a terrible accident. And what my mother said to me, I had never heard before, but she said that one of the doorways were open for my aunt to come through. I got the impression that this meant we have different time frames or more than one time frame that we could choose to pass on if we choose to. And one of them were approaching for my aunt. And my aunt could come through or something like that. She was saying if she desired, but she knew my aunt didn't want to. Shortly after that, I think it was like 24 hours after I had this vision, I was in California. My family was in Detroit, Michigan. My aunt had a terrible accident. She slid on some black ice and hit a tree. She was lucky that she didn't pass. So that was the accident my mother was telling me about. And then my mother just continued to come to me, for a time to tell me things. The other person was my grandfather. When he passed, I could be in my kitchen cooking and I would have to turn around because I literally could feel my grandfather standing there in the door watching me. He just was following me. It looked like he was just in my home, but watching over me. I know he was watching over me. At the time, I was in some pretty bad financial, or struggling financially. My grandfather was, like I said, around me, but then he started trying to give me numbers for the lottery. I remember one time I was laying on the couch and I could hear his voice just call my name, Pat, 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 3 times. Well, my grandfather never, ever, ever called me Pat. My name is Patricia, but he never called me Pat. He used to always call me Patty. So I thought maybe he's trying to give me a lottery. So I called my grandmother. My grandmother said, I believe Daddy's trying to help you financially. She said, told me what, they had the books at this time where the Red Devil, the Three Wise Men, and the Kansas City Kitty. And you could look up things. All of my dreams and stuff used to always come out in the Wise Man. Sometimes the Red Devil, but most of the time the Wise Man. So my grandmother looked up Pat to see what it played for. And she said, you should play this because I believe Daddy giving you that. Sure enough, later that day, Pat came out in the 4-digit lottery. And I didn't get it. My grandmother got it, but I didn't get it. So again, my grandfather gave me something else. I was laying on the couch and he came into my living room. I could feel him standing there. And I'm just laying there. I wasn't asleep. But all of a sudden, the way I can explain this is I went into a light sleep and a vision. And I seen these birds, but the birds were flying out of my head. Sure enough, it came out in the lottery, whatever birds played for out the Wise Man. And it came across the board, meaning 559 and 995. So that's the way it came. I don't know what birds play for. I forgot, but I'm just giving you the number. That's the way it came across the board. He came to me often, giving me numbers like that to play in the lottery. Some of them I got, some of them I didn't. But my grandmother was saying he's there, he's watching over you, and he's trying to give you a financial blessing. Eventually, I moved. And so a couple of months later, I moved. When I moved, I no longer felt his presence as strong as I did. A friend of mine this lady I had met, she was a very spiritual lady. She was from Jamaica. She went on to tell me, when you move, your loved ones don't find you right away. They'll find you, but it'll take a little time. Unless she told me this technique to do so that they can find you right away. So, anyway, these are good things to do to try to connect with your loved ones. Thanks for tuning in to The Patricia Show.